Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where today I'm going to go over my fix ideas for everybody's favourite Era 2 premium light tank, the Wiesel 1. And when I say everyone's favourite premium light tank in Era 2, I do genuinely mean that. The Wiesel 1 is a favourite, likely, of most people that own one, because it is such a ridiculously good tank. And it's very, very obvious to me why so many people would like it. However, just because we like it does not necessarily mean that it is good for us, or good for the, well, in this context, good for the game. So I'm going to go over my fix ideas for this tank. I know Wargaming is tied a little bit legally as to what they can and can't do now that they've released it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my fix ideas, and I'm going to list them in order of smallest change to the tank to biggest change to the tank. So, you know, the smallest, I suppose, from a legal point of view, you know, making a small change is better than making a big change. So from best legal option to worst legal option. But before we do that, I want to show you this table here. This is a table of every autocannon in Era 2. We have the caliber, penetration of armor-piercing rounds, average alpha per shot, rate of fire per minute, clip size, ammunition speed, damage per minute, and the name of the weapon system. One thing that is fairly consistent throughout this game is that, and this is my understanding, if the gun name is the same between two tanks, then the gun statistics are identical. Examples would be Chieftain 120, Chieftain CTR. Both have the L11A5 gun. Same gun stats for both tanks. Same story for the Conqueror Mark 1, Conqueror Mark 2. Both use the L1A1 gun. Same stats on both. It's the same for the Super M48 and the Leopard, and it's the same for the M113 and the M50, and the list goes on. I'm sure there are many other examples in the game that you could find. So the trend is, if the gun is the same between two tanks, the stats are the same. And that's the first thing I want to draw your attention to in regard to the Wiesel 1. It is meant to have the same gun as the Marder 1A1. Both the Wiesel and the Marder are listed as having the 20mm Rheinmetall Mark 20 RH202 autocannon. But if we take a look at the stats, they are not the same. The Wiesel has a higher rate of fire, a larger clip, and this doesn't sound like it's that big a deal with those two small changes, but the DPM goes from a reasonable 3,468 all the way up to 5,010. And with a DPM that high on an autocannon that has 175mm of penetration, you end up with a weapon system that can shred and kill almost every target it faces in a matter of seconds. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not okay for balance. From a balance point of view and an enjoyment point of view, that's not good. That's not okay. I don't mind the shredding so much, but it's the every target in a matter of seconds bit that I have an issue with. Russian, British, Chinese, French, and American mediums and heavies should be safe from all angles except the rear. Almost every tank in Era 2 should be relatively safe from the Wiesel 1 unless you've caught out and you're being shot in the rear. That should be the case. But that is not the case at all. And in my opinion, this is what needs to be addressed and fixed as soon as possible. Not just because, you know, there's one premium tank that's a problem, but it's because the entire health of Era 2 relies on it to an extent. Every single tank that is in Era 2 has to at some point face the Wiesel 1, and it's just not fun at all. It's never fun to fight a Wiesel because it is so difficult to hit, it's so difficult to see, and even when you do hit it, shots bounce for reasons unknown when they shouldn't. It's just not fun. It's just not okay the way it is right now. So, with that in mind, let's go over the fix ideas that I have in order to bring this thing in line. So my first fix idea is to add the overheat mechanic. Having a powerful gun is fine, but if we've learned anything from the T249 and the Wiesel, so World War II and Cold War, it is that a powerful gun with no limits just breaks the game. You end up with exactly what we have now, tanks that can function as one-man armies, and that's exactly what the Wiesel can do. I think the overheat timing of the GAU 8 would work well for the Wiesel 1. The damage output can be there, but there needs to be a penalty for just spamming the trigger. Right, my second fix idea is to limit the gun traverse. Give it 90 degrees traverse left and 90 degrees traverse right, and leave everything else the same. This would essentially bring it in line with the Era 3 Wiesel. It's strong in attack, but it is weak in defense if you've got it on the run. And if it's being chased, it would need to, well, the Wiesel player would need to think. They'd need to be smart about how they play if they've got something behind them. And it would also mean that you can still circle strafe you can still circle a target and strafe it to an extent, but it would also allow those that are having to fight back. It would mean the Wiesel has a weakness that can be exploited, very similar to that of the weakness of the FV4005. If you can get behind it, then you're safe. Both sides have fight options, and both sides have strengths that they need to play to, but they also have weaknesses that they need to avoid. Alright, next up, number 3, well, the third option. And this third option is a combination of both, as I honestly don't think that the overheat mechanic alone will be enough. Add the overheat timing of the GAU with the limited gun traverse 90 left and 90 right. I think this would make the Wiesel 1 a far more intelligent tank to play. There are multiple limitations on the weapon system, but you still have the advantage of being small and very, very hard to hit. Alright, fourth idea. Follow the already established trend in the game and make the Wiesel's gun the same as the Marder 1A1. Drop the fire rate to 139 rounds per minute, drop the clip size to 75, and match the 27-second reload. 27 is probably a little bit long for autocannon only, maybe make it 23, 24 seconds. I personally think this is the best solution of them all, partly because Wargaming have not nerfed or buffed the Marder's autocannon, as far as I'm aware. If they have, let me know. But as far as I'm aware, they haven't changed that really, other than the server tick rate change that they introduced a couple of months ago. So that tells me that the performance of the autocannon on the Marder is absolutely fine as it is, because there's been no need to change it at all. Yes, the Marder has ATGMs, but the size of the Marder is a weakness, and the minimum arm distance of the ATGMs is also a weakness, which means that the size of the Wiesel is the advantage that would balance the nerf to the weapon. And like we've already mentioned, the advantages that the Wiesel has, they really can't be overlooked. It's small, it's difficult to see, it's very difficult to hit, and with the current hit registration issues that the game has got, even when you hit the Wiesel, rounds are just bouncing when they really, really shouldn't. So the list for liking the Wiesel, or the reasons for liking the Wiesel in its current format, that list is very, very long, and it's not surprising to me at all that so many people do like it, and many more want to buy one. It is a stupendously good premium light tank, but its success comes at the expense of almost every other tank in Era 2, and for that reason it needs to be reeled in. It really does need to be reeled in, because it's fun for you if you're playing the Wiesel, but it's just absolutely miserable for everybody else that's having to play in Era 2. Okay folks, that's all I've got for this one. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, if not a dislike, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.